the last couple of classes I tried to follow the order of Brachos and then, but now this Perek Gimel talks about laws of mixtures.
I can't wait till we get to the meeting.
The laws of mixtures aren't like the other halachas in that because they're mixed in with all the other halachas as well.
Right.
There's all different kinds of mixtures and halachas are also mixed together. So it's an excellent sefer I'm using from Rabbi Dasi, Shmiras Brachos. Yeah, this fantastic. And so he really sets things up in a very clear way. So the basic idea is like this: if you have a mixture of two things, one is the main part and one is secondary. Halacha is you make a bracha on the main part, and the secondary thing is automatically included with the bracha on the main thing.
Example?
We'll get to example in a second.
Oh, okay.
And even if the minority of this mixture is the main thing, the bracha is still on the main thing, not on the majority. The minority is one item is there to season the other item. Even though the seasoning is the majority, the bracha is still going to be on the main thing, not on the majority.
Okay, the main thing.
The main thing. If A is there to season B,
so okay, can you use an example? If you have something that has flour in it,
we're going to get that. Flour is
it's only 30%, so you still make zoyas.
Flour, right? Flour is always considered the main thing, even if it's a minority, and therefore the bracha is always going to be on Mazenis, unless as last week, if the flour is there just to make it thicker or to dye it, then it's not considered a major component. The question is, when do we consider something to be the main thing? When is something to be considered secondary? Sometimes we'll see that even if something's the main thing, the other thing is secondary, you still make a bracha on the secondary thing first anyways. And sometimes we'll see that you don't make a bracha on the secondary thing, you're not allowed to. It's considered a bracha l'batala. So you have to really know what you're talking about. And although this is a general rule, and this general rule is true, but as this applies, there's so many different factors that can change the rules. So let's go step by step. If you have, let's say, rice, and into the rice you put in some raisins or some almonds, and you cook the rice and the raisins together. So the Alter Rebbe says, whenever you cook something together, it's considered like one entity. If it is indeed one entity, if it's one thing, so then it's not. The raisins are included with the rice. Make a bracha on the rice, and the rice exempts the raisins. However, if you cook the rice first and then you added the raisins in later, so then, although the main thing here is the rice is the main thing, the raisins are there just to season the rice. However, since if you also like the raisins are important to you, like you like the rice, like them both, like raisins and you like rice. So then
raisins are not there to flavor the rice. They're there because it's important to you.
Not necessarily, it doesn't matter. Even if the raisins are there to flavor the rice. But you also like the raisins. The raisins are you like the raisins. You like the raisins as much as you like rice. Okay. They're both important to you. Both. Yeah, they're both you like them both. You're not like a rice guy. You're like, oh, let's eat. It's rice and raisins. Nice. I like rice, I like raisins. So then the Alter Rebbe says the best thing to do, if you didn't cook the rice with the raisins, best thing to do is make the bracha on the raisins first. Why can't you make bracha on the rice first? Because, well, first of all, in general, eight goes before shahakal. The order is, I heard a great way to remember, maga eish. Discussed it last week. Mezenis, hagofen, eitz, hadam shahakal. Maga, mezenis, hagofen, eitz, hadam shahakal. So here, anyways, the bracha on the raisins goes bracha before the bracha on the rice, but you really could technically exempt the raisins with the rice. But if you want to do midas chassidus, you want to be extra strict, and you want to make a bracha on the raisins, you have to make a bracha on the raisins before the rice, because the raisins are naturally secondary to the rice, and therefore you have to make a bracha on the raisins first, because once you make a bracha on the rice is automatically going to exempt the raisins. Let's say another example. Let's say you have noodles and green beans, and you cook them together. And the majority, if you cook them together, the majority is the noodles, and you also like green beans too. So it would seem, based upon our previous example, if you want to be extra strict, although the majority is the Mazenis for sure is always considered more important, and you but you want to make a bracha on the green beans as well, because you want to be extra strict. There's an issue here. Why is there an issue? Because since you cook the lakshan, the Mazenis, the noodles with the green beans, so the words of the Alter Rebbe are, when you cook things together, they become one dish, and therefore you can no longer make a bracha on the secondary thing at all. You don't need to. You don't need to make a, and if you make a bracha on the secondary thing, it's a bracha levatala, because it's all one dish.
So if it was not one dish, if you didn't cook it together, one would be a dominant, the usual case.
Right. If you didn't cook it together,
If you cook it together, that's what the issue is.
Right. If you didn't cook it together, you add the green beans later. Just say clear. If you add the green beans later, you make a bracha dama first, then a bracha on the noodles. But if you cook it together, so then there's an issue. If you cook the noodles and then you added the green beans, the main thing for you is the noodles. You could technically make a bracha on them. Halachically, you make a bracha on the noodles and exempt the green beans. But the best thing is to make a bracha on the green beans first, and therefore, and that way you won't be automatically exempted by the bracha on the noodles. And you can make bracha on the secondary thing as well, right? That's Mrs. Chassidus, right?
It's because you added them after the noodles.
If you add the green beans after the noodles,
After the noodles. The noodles are fully cooked.
And now you put
now you want to add some flavor to it, you put some green beans.
right. So if you make a bracha on the noodles, and then you're going to exempt the green beans.
Right.
You don't want to exempt the green beans because you want to be Mizrach Chassidus. You want to make a bracha on a secondary thing as well. And so once you make a bracha on the Mazenis.
What do you do with the Mazenis? Aren't you supposed to do Mazenis first?
Excellent. So in general, Mazenis goes before Hadam. But in order to satisfy this Mizrach Chassidus and to make a bracha, you're allowed to put it on the side. You're allowed to make a bracha on the green beans first, although a Mazenis is supposed to go first. But because once you say Mazenis, you can no longer able to say a bracha on the green beans. You're allowed to say a bracha on the green beans first, and that way they won't be automatically exempted by the noodles. Now, here's the tricky thing. If you cook the noodles with the green beans together, the Alter Rebbe says that it becomes one dish. So there's an argument among Chabad poskim. What is the meaning of it becomes one dish? Does it automatically become one dish? Or only if it becomes one dish physically and it's not discernible and you become one entity, then it's considered one dish. So for example, if you have 8 cholent, and in the cholent you have a kishka, and the kishka is mazenis, and you have in the kishka also potatoes, and you have in the kishka and the cholent you have also meat. So what bracha do you say? And beans, don't forget the beans. So
that's the majority.
Okay, but didn't you say before, once you have mazenis mixed into something, mazenis is the main thing.
Right.
And it's cooked together. So it's all one dish. So what bracha should you say? You should say a bracha mazenis, because that's the main thing.
Now, wouldn't it make a difference?
1 second, hold on. What?
The kishka it's kind of like an item on its own too.
Oh, the kishka is an item on its own.
It's not mixed into the.
If
Does that make a difference? It sounds to me like it would.
the language is if they're cooked together or they're baked together. That's the language of the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. If it's cooked together or baked together. You're saying the kishka has on it the silver foil or something, and therefore it's not really
It's wrapped.
it's wrapped and it's a separate entity within the cholent.
So it could be cooked out. It seems to be.
Yeah, eggs also.
Usually when you serve it, you slice it, you put it in kind of like.
Let's add that to the question. One opinion is that since the kishka is cooked together with the cholent, the bracha you're going to say is going to be on the kishka. The other opinion is going to say,
They'll cover the whole.
and they'll cover the whole cholent. You're not allowed to, even according to that opinion, to make a bracha on the potatoes or the meat.
15 minutes. Thank you. Unless you want to come and learn the Brachos with us. It's very interesting. Love you. Bye.
Okay.
Sorry. Thank you.
Let's, the words actually he uses are that the kishka is mixed in with the cholent. So let's say it's mixed in together.
Yeah, because that would take that question out.
If it's cooked together and the kishka is mixed in with it together. So the mazenis is going to be the main thing. If it's cooked together, it's mixed together, At what point do you mix the kishka in? I don't think that's so relevant. But if the kishka is mixed in with the cholent, I think we'll figure out what kishka mixed with cholent is another day. But right now, the kishka is mixed with the cholent.
Right.
But it's still discernible, the potatoes, still discernible, the meat, still discernible, everything's discernible.
Right.
So one opinion is you have to make a bracha on the kishka and do not make a bracha on the potatoes. You're not allowed to make a bracha on the chicken or the meat or the beans by themselves because they've been exempted by the bracha on the kishka. You want to be more strict, you want to skip the bracha on the kishka and make the bracha on the beans and the meat. You can't, because according to Alter Rebbe, it's all one entity. It's not like a situation where we say that if you also like this, if you also like the minor item in the dish, you also like the green beans. We say you can make a bracha on the green beans first. Here you can't because it was cooked together. Therefore, one opinion says that you make a bracha on the kishka and you exempt them. You're not allowed to make a bracha on the other ones first.
Even if you see it beans, each item.
Right, you still can't. You're not, because it's cooked together, it becomes one entity.
Okay.
The other opinion is the Alter Rebbe means only when it actually becomes one entity. Becomes a mush. However, if all these items are so discernible and they're separate from each other, literally, they're not all picked up by the same spoon.
Like a soup, for example. Soup usually stays on its own. I understand it all.
If they're not all eaten together, so then it's not considered like one entity, and therefore you are allowed to make a bracha.
You just added another word.
Okay.
They're not eaten together. You didn't say that before.
If each piece stands by itself, the words they have over here is the achas b'kaf achas and sharamin. They're not eaten with one spoon with the others.
But that's a whole new.
That's an important caveat. It's important.
Right, but I'm saying you just added this is new that not come up before.
Correct.
The chont usually you take a
It includes everything together.
soup. You also do the same. It's a vegetable soup. You don't sit there and pick the carrots and pick the potatoes and pick them. You take a spoonful.
If they all are not picked up by the same spoon, that's the language he says, then the second opinion is that they're going to, you cannot exempt one with the, you can't exempt the potatoes with the kishka. You're not allowed, you're not able to. And what you, and second, hold on. Now you can't, you could, but you are able to make a bracha. Hold on. Sorry.
Take a mushroom barley soup, for example.
But that's not getting the barley soup. We're in the middle of the chont. Going to put the barley soup into the chont. Okay. He says, Vigadasi is passing like this. They're not considered one entity, and you have to make a bracha on each thing separately. If they're not picked up by the same spoon, you have to make a bracha on each thing separately. That's what he says. And so you have to
all
make a
the
bracha.
examples that we had, whether it's a mushroom barley soup or vegetable soup or chon, all those things that you don't sit there and pick them by themselves. So therefore, it would be one bracha. Whatever your main item is, right?
Okay. And you can make a bracha on the potatoes and the chicken by the meat, the beans by itself because it's included.
Right.
Included
in the case of the chon.
In the kishka.
Okay, if you don't have a kishka.
Oh, if you don't have a kishka, so let's go back to you have two items that are cooked.
The most important item is in it.
Not the most important
Or the
item.
majority of it.
Not
When
okay. Majority item. Good. Right. Hold on. Let's go back there. Let's slow down. So majority item. So you have two items which are together, cooked together, and you like them both. So the halacha is the main thing is considered the majority. If you like them both, the main thing is majority. However, you're allowed to make a bracha on the minority also before you make a bracha on the majority item and then exempt it. It's a more this is better to make a bracha on the minority item. That way, you also had a bracha on the minority.
So you could make a bracha on the minority. Let's take a chont, for example. Let's
However,
go back to the chont about the kishka.
yeah, but the issue is in this situation you can't because with the chont it's all considered like one entity.
Right.
So therefore, you can't make a bracha on the minority item. You have to make a bracha on the majority item, and that's it.
So you pick the beans usually.
So
usually that's the majority in most chonts. That's the majority. Depends on what the chont
If you like both things, then you make a bracha on the majority. If you personally like the minority, and the other item there, which is majority, is just to season the minority, then you make a bracha on the minor.
To the chon, for example.
If
The chon
you,
has beans.
it seems,
It has meat.
it seems,
Now, meat is whoa.
okay. If the main ingredient for you is, it seems, if for you it's the beans just seasoning the meat, that's what's going on over here. So then the bracha.
It's not just seasoning.
You need to season the beans.
The beans is just a fillet, cheap fillet.
People like it, people like it.
Main thing when people look inside the chon, they look at the meat, they're not looking at the
You
beans.
just said the opposite. The beans are seasoning the meat. That's what I said.
No, the meat is.
The meat is seasoning the beans.
What's the main thing? The beans are the meat.
The meat.
The meat.
So the beans are seasoning the meat. The main thing is the meat.
No, because the meat gives flavor to the
Yeah.
beans, otherwise the beans have no flavor.
Meat is the main thing.
But
but
the
Okay,
meat-
I think we're
I see,
using the word
we're using-
seasoning in
Okay.
halacha. We're saying
Yeah,
which
I
thing
see.
is meant to help the other thing.
Halachic seasoning, not-
Oh, so.
Right, okay.
What season are we in? Okay.
Okay.
If the main purpose of you eating this dish is for one item, and the other items there are just to help that thing
Right,
taste
that's the
better,
seasoning. Okay.
then you're allowed to make a bracha on the minority of this dish, because this is for you the major component. Although it's physically less quantity in this thing, but since you like it more, you can make a bracha on this is for you the main thing. Other things are there just to help it. You make a bracha on the main thing, which is the main thing for you, and that exempts the secondary things. And you're not allowed to, in the case of the chol, to make a bracha on the other things, because the other things.
For sure, probably.
You're not allowed to make a bracha. Another possibility to do is, if you're just a crazy guy like me, then you just go in the kitchen, take out some other items out, just in case. I make a bracha on a peanut, and a bracha on and a cup of water.
I think
Maybe
if
it's
you
okay.
rest out the heavy, it's something to watch.
Yeah. It comes to rice.
Okay,
Well, I mean, there's other types, but that's a question, just watch.
let's go back to the green beans a
Okay.
second. Go back to the green beans.
Which one, what are you going back to?
I want to go to the green beans.
Okay.
I like it.
You have
Rice, is that the one you're going?
green beans and you have noodles,
Noodles, that's it.
and you cook the green beans by themselves, noodles by themselves. Ordinarily, green beans don't talk to you at all. So if someone would ask you, what's the main thing? You would say, I hate green beans. I could tolerate green beans. I can tolerate green beans, but I don't like them. However, green beans and noodles, that's a machaya. Green beans come to the stage when they have noodles with them. Then green beans are important to you. So it's not really a thing to you. It's only a thing to you right now because you're eating it together with the noodles. But if you ate the green beans by themselves, you're like, I don't like green beans. So in that scenario, although I mentioned before, the best thing is to do is to what? Is take a bracha on the green beans first. Halachically, you make a bracha on the noodles and exempt the green beans. However, in a scenario where you don't like green beans and you only like them because you're having them with the noodles, then what's halacha? Make a bracha on the noodles. However, make things even more complicated. So let's take it. You make a bracha on the noodles. You don't make a bracha on the green beans. You're not supposed to make a bracha on the noodles.
Right.
Unless it's Shabbos. On Shabbos, you should make a bracha on the green beans before the noodles. Because since you have to say 100 brachas, very good. Since you have to say 100 brachas, and therefore, although we say that you shouldn't make an extra bracha, you could exempt it with the noodles because you don't like green beans. The only reason you like the green beans at all is because of the noodles. So why looking at the green beans? Why can't you just exempt them with the noodles? But since it's Shabbos, we say better make a bracha on the green beans first before make a bracha on the noodles. We don't consider this an extra bracha. During the week, we say it's an extra bracha. What are you doing it for? But on Shabbos, it's not an extra bracha because on Shabbos, you have to say 100 brachas. Yeah. Okay. Let's go now to let's go to schnitzel for a second.
I'm sorry, before you go to this.
Yeah.
So plate of soup, you have a vegetable soup.
Yeah, I'll go to soup. Go to soup.
What bracha you make on the soup?
Let's go to soup and syrup.
There's potatoes, there's carrots, there's what else is the vegetable?
Big mushroom.
Okay.
There's beans,
Well,
mushrooms.
It's only fit 1 or 2.
Regarding solids and liquids, there's a unique thing. With solids and liquids, make a bracha on the solid before the liquid. We're going to have a whole share on soup. That's what that'll be. They will
Okay.
But in general, with solids and liquids, make a bracha on the solid before the liquid.
Okay.
Even though even in a scenario where and the cell does not exempt the liquid automatically. So let's go for a second to cereal milk. Cereal and milk, let's say it's Cheerios, and Cheerios is mazenis. And we said before that if once you take a bracha on the main thing, it automatically exempts the secondary thing. And therefore, we would think to make a bracha on the milk before we make a bracha on the Cheerios, because once you make a bracha on the Cheerios is going to exempt the milk. But it doesn't work that way. Why not? Because since it's liquid and solid, and you also like the liquid, so therefore it's not liquid and solid doesn't have the same kind of relationship as other ikar and tafel, other things which are main and secondary. And if you don't like the milk, make a bracha on the Cheerios, don't say a bracha on the milk. However, if the milk is also something that you like, milk is it has equal importance to you. Let me have a bowl of cereal. It doesn't matter. I like them both. If you're not only having the milk because you're having cereal, you also like the milk, then you make a bracha, mezainis first, and then shahako. On that note, let's just throw another thing in there. If you have, let's say, a pastry, like let's say a chocolate pie, and you notice I got what that example. I do.
So yeah, gonna go on the sort of like 7-layer cake.
Baruch Hashem. If you like chocolate pie and you want to have a chocolate pie, the problem you have with the chocolate pie is like this. The chocolate pie is a very thin crust. And you know that you only say a bracha al michya if you say have 27 grams. So you're going to eat enough chocolate pie to have 27 grams. That's not a problem. The problem is that 27 grams have to be eaten within a chilas pras, which is a certain amount of minutes, which is also not such a problem.
6 minutes or
So it's an issue. One opinion is 3 to 4 minutes. That's the best way of doing it. Another opinion is 6 to 7 minutes. As Samach Tzaddik mentioned, another opinion. So the best thing is if you're able to eat 27 grams within 3 or 4 minutes, great. If not, or we're saying 6 to 7 minutes, then it's included.
27 grams.
1 ounce. 1 ounce. So not a big deal, right? But it's possible that you could have something where you're not going to have that much mazanis in it. The majority is going to be, let's say maybe like a cheesecake you mentioned last week. Like a cheesecake, a lot of cheesecake, you're not going to get 27 grams until you have a lot of cheesecake. So even though you finish the whole cheesecake, you're still not having solved the problem. You can't say alamich. So what should you do? So Alter Rebbe says, so you have to have a 7-layer cake with your cheesecake. And besides the 7-layer cake, you also have to have a latte. So that way you can make a mazenis and a shahako and alamicha and beit fashes, and that's the best thing to do because you don't know which bracha to make after you had the cheesecake because there's not enough a grain within the 6 and 7 minutes.
Before you get to after.
No, the cheesecake went last week. Cheesecake is mazenis. Yeah, because it's the whole thing is mazenis. Because if you decided, it's a weird thing. If you have a apple strudel, so it's baked together, and the main thing is the grain. The main thing is the mazenis. You're not allowed to take out the apple from it and make a bracha on the apple and then on the thing, because we said before, according to Alter Rebbe, once it's cooked together, it's one thing. So therefore, you can make a bracha on the secondary thing. The mazenis is the main thing that you can't do that. So it's bracha levatala. It's a bracha for no reason. So when you have an apple strudel, what bracha you make an apple strudel? Just mazenis, nothing else. What if you only want the apple part? Then you can make ha'itz. If you only want the apple, you take the apple out of the strudel, and you're not going to make mazenis. You're not planning to eat the mazenis at all. You're not planning to eat the cake part at all. Just the apple part. Then you could say ha'itz.
What about a little flake of those?
What about a flake of the dough that might get on? You'll be careful.
It's flake of dough.
If you can't. Okay.
Yeah, they're going to stop it and take a piece of.
Let's do 2 more things. Let's do. Number one is if you have a dough which is made of bean flour together with wheat flour, so the bracha is going to be moitzi, even if the wheat flour is manar. Okay, how much, what's the bracha achreina going to be? That will have to get another time because it depends on again how much you're eating, the ratio of the grain, and
Why did you pick bean flour?
because I heard of it.
Bird flower.
Legumes, other kind of legumes, it's kidneys.
Is that the same thing applies to almond flour?
I know what almond was. Almond.
Almond
Flour. Yeah, look here.
I think why call that system and call it it's the you want to wash it. It's the-
Hey, you're the guy, right?
Yes, Rabbi Lev?
Yeah, give me 2 minutes to be ready. Okay,
Probably means 50% of all flour.
take Hametzi. Okay, he doesn't say that. He says that even if it's a minority, it's still Hametzi. Maybe Rosh Hashanah was talking about so there shouldn't be any issues with the bracha achrein also. But the bracha is going to be Hametzi. But bottom line is that one more halach. One more halach is like a salad with croutons. A salad. There are different kinds of croutons. There are mezenis croutons and Hametzi croutons. If you have a salad with mezenis croutons, so you have lettuce, you have tomatoes, you have cucumbers, and you have mezenis croutons. So what did we say before? Unlike with liquid and solid, if it's all solid, you make a bracha on the mezenis and exempts everything else. Mezenis always takes precedence. However, here the croutons are you want to make a bracha on the salad as well. So we skip the croutons, we make a bracha on the salad. So that because I want to take a bracha on the croutons, be a question to make a bracha on the salad because the salad may have been included.
I thought the croutons lose the value as a once you make it.
I said mezenis croutons. That's hametzi croutons in a second. That's mezenis croutons. Now let's say you have hametzi croutons. If you have hametzi croutons, this is what you're supposed to do.
So this guy first of all makes croutons.
What are hametzi croutons? What are they? So if they're made,
You assume you take a slice of bread, you dry it, you cut it into small pieces.
if it's made with oil, it's going to be mezenis. If it's made with water, it's hametzi.
Make it simple. You put a piece of bread, a white of bread, not a piece of bread.
It's a bread, yeah.
Cut it into small- I thought that once you cut it into small pieces, it loses its value as a white.
So now, what do you do now with these croutons? You want to have the salad, you want to have the croutons. You're not interested in having a whole meal with them. So what do? What you do is make a bracha adama on the salad. Then you wash the outer bracha because you're not eating. You only wash the bracha if you're eating at least 2 ounces of bread. You know you're not eating 2 ounces of bread because you just have a few croutons in your salad. You got bracha adama in the salad. You got bracha. You wash with the outer bracha. Then you say hametzi, of course, on the croutons, and then you are able to eat the salad, and you make a bracha achrein on the salad because you're not eating a whole meal of hametzi. So you make a bracha hametzi, you have a little bit of crouton. Doesn't say the bracha achrein is. I'm sure the bracha achrein is going to breed brain nefashis. They're not eating enough hametzi for it to be a thing. All right, so stop here.
Next time I make a salad.